What's up, everybody, and welcome back once again. In this video, we're going to be doing yet another deep dive into Super Bowl 54. And we did a little bit of this last week. I spent about 35-40 minutes talking about how the Super Bowl 54 this year, the matchup between the Chiefs and the 49ers, is a ritual that's in relation to Joe Montana, who played for both teams, and his career. Now in this video, we're also going to be talking about the death of Kobe Bryant and how his numerology is closely linked to Joe Montana. We're also going to be looking at Kobe Bryant's 81-point game that he scored in 2006, the best game of his career, the one that defined his career. And we're going to look at how that went down by the numbers in relation to not just Super Bowl 54, but also Joe Montana as well. And the way that we're going to link this all together, we're going to bring it all together by explaining the eclipse riddle that lies underneath. To say I've been obsessing over the Super Bowl and the death of Kobe Bryant over the past couple days would be an understatement. If you're a regular reader of my blog, you'll see that I have 6 posts on the event already. And this is certainly, I think, the most significant thing to happen since I even started my blog about 2 years ago. My website traffic has tripled. My blog traffic has went up almost 10 times over the past 2 days, its normal traffic. So this is a great opportunity to wake people up to this world of numbers. And as we explore Super Bowl 54, we're mainly just going to be focusing on 2 ciphers, the alphabetic order and Jewish Gematria. Of course, there will be more sprinkled in. But to me, this presents just a beautiful tapestry of numbers that come together for this game that will be experienced on the 33rd day of 2/2/2020. In this video, I expect this to go maybe an hour or more. I'm going to be trying to check in on the chat. I see it's already hopping pretty early. Usually it takes an hour to get this many people in on the chat, but I guess these late-night streams are good. So I guess let's get started. Like I said, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat here, but I'll be dipping in and out. I always get so into this that I kind of lose myself in the post and forget about you guys, but I'm going to try not to do that so much here. All right. So, in my original post talking about the Super Bowl, I pointed out how it was a riddle in relation to the state of Montana. And I pointed out how Joe Montana has a bunch of matching numerology with the state of Montana. The state of Montana admitted to the Union on a date with 126 and 108 numerology. Joe Montana's full name sums to 108 and 126. We're also going to be talking about quarterback Patrick Mahomes during this video. He has the same gematria as Joe Montana. And there's a lot more that goes into this. I covered it in my last video. We talked about the moon riddle and all this, but what I failed to connect in that video was something very significant to this entire riddle and what really is the base of this riddle. Joe Montana was drafted into the NFL in the year 1979. Well, on this channel, I talk all about these 2 total solar eclipses that create an X over the United States in the year 2017 and 2024. And, these are very interesting eclipses, of course. We talk about the numerology with them all the time. The 2017 eclipse was the first total solar eclipse in the United States since the year 1979. And this eclipse only went over the northwest part of the United States. But I want you to pay close attention to the path of this total solar eclipse. It enters the nation at about the same place as the 2017 eclipse, but because it was about 6 months earlier, the movement of the moon's shadow goes in the opposite direction. It goes north instead of south. So this eclipse enters almost perfectly between Washington and Oregon, splits through the panhandle of Idaho, and then covers damn near the entire state of Montana. Now again, this was in the year 1979, the only total solar eclipse of the year. The same year, quarterback Joe Montana entered the league. So we're going to talk about how this game is the Montana Bowl. Now pay attention to the Gematria of Montana Bowl, and we're going to look at the rest of these ciphers in a little bit. But in English Extended Gematria, the cipher that's based closely on Hebrew Gematria and Greek isopsephy, structured the same way, notice how Montana Bowl equals 994. 994 is the same number as total solar eclipse. And this year's Montana Bowl will be played on the date 2/2/2020. But let's go back to this 994, the number that connects Montana Bowl to total solar eclipse. Well, what year did Joe Montana end his career? That would be the year 1994. In fact, it was the last day of 1994 on which he ended his career. But not only is he connected to this 994 number, notice the ordinal value of 202. The 202nd prime number is 1231, and the date of this game, his final game ever, was 12/31 in the year 1994. So right off the bat, we're seeing the base of this eclipse riddle playing out. An eclipse in Montana the same year he enters the league, and then he leaves by the numbers. We're also going to be talking about how Kobe's helicopter crash ties into this. Now, Joe Montana wore number 16 for the 49ers. The first Super Bowl he won was Super Bowl 16. Notice how helicopter crash equals 160. Just like Joe Montana Bowl. All these things connected. Now, in reduction, helicopter crash equals 79, like the year of the Montana eclipse. In fact, the word helicopter sums to 111, just like Montana in the reverse alphabetic order. The number 79 is a prime number. 79 is the 22nd prime number. So after the Montana eclipse in 79, now we get the Montana Bowl on the date 2/02 in 2020, just like how total solar eclipse gives us this 202 value. And perhaps one of the most interesting things about this eclipse is that this occurred on the date February 26th. You can write this date as 26/2 on the calendar, and the state Montana equals 262 in Jewish or Latin gematria. And this is the cipher that I teach and I say is the most significant outside of the base 4. We're going to dive deep into this cipher and see how amazingly it's connected to the English ordinal method as we go along. So on the date of the Montana eclipse, Joe Montana was 22 years and 260 days old. Numerology, of course, the zeros dropped, so we're looking at the numbers 22 and 26. Kobe Bryant died on the 26th day of 2020. And now we're going to talk about the best game in Kobe's career, which was on the 22nd day of 2006. Of course, the name Bryant equals 26. Basketball equaling 22. When Kobe Bryant scored 81 points, it was on the 22nd day of the year. It also gave the Lakers their 22nd win of the season. The National Basketball Association also has Gematria of 22. Keep these other numbers in mind. We'll come back to these in a second. One thing I probably should have mentioned in this other post is that Montana is the 41st state admitted to the Union. Kobe Bryant equals 41 in reduction, and he died at the age of 41. This all a riddle for the Super Bowl, which equals 41. But check this out. If you write out the number 41 as it's spelled, you get a Latin Gematria value of 731. Measuring from the date of Kobe Bryant's best game to the date that Kobe Bryant died is exactly 731 weeks. What I also found interesting with all these 41 connections is that his 81-point game was 54 weeks before Super Bowl 41, and now here we are with a major Super Bowl 54 riddle. In that game, the Toronto Raptors scored 104 points. And I don't know, that might be because the Super Bowl, 14 years, 1 week, 4 days later. The number 14 sums to 41 and 104. So in that game, Kobe Bryant scored 81 points. When you write out 81, it sums to 54 in reduction. Joe Montana, 54, the quarterback of both teams in Super Bowl 54. And then a week before the game, we get the death of Kobe Bean Bryant, which equals 54. He died along with his daughter Gianna, which equals 54. Kobe's death fell exactly 1 week or 7 days before the Super Bowl. Notice how both 1 week and 7 days equals 33. If you open up your Bible and find the 33rd verse of the Bible, it talks about the seventh day in which God rested. The name Kobe equals 33 in the alphabetic order. So if we measure from the birthdays of Joe Montana to Kobe Bryant, we get this really interesting number. First of all, the 73 and a 22 eclipse number. The 73 is interesting because that's the sacrifice number. But what's so interesting is that their birthdays are 8,108 days apart. In this game, Kobe Bryant scored 81 points. His name, Kobe Bean Bryant, summing to 81. Joseph Clifford Montana Jr., his full name, summing to 108. This is the same as Joe Montana, 108. So Kobe scores 81 points. Notice how 81 also equals 108. And 135. Joe Montana, 108. Kobe Bean Bryant, 135. The game was played on January 22nd. The Lakers won the game with 122 points. In the Super Bowl, it will be San Francisco, 122, against Kansas City, 122. The game will be played 12 weeks and 2 days after the state of Montana's date of admission to the Union. And on the date that Kobe scored 81 points, Joe Montana was 18,122 days old. 18, the reflection of 81. 122, like the date. Also like the number of points the Lakers scored. Remember, Joe Montana holds a Super Bowl record. He's thrown 122 passes in the Super Bowl without an interception. This game was against the Toronto Raptors. Check out how Toronto Raptors equals 224. Joseph Clifford Montana sums to 224. He was born in New Eagle, Pennsylvania, which equals 224. And when we take capital letters into account, Kobe Bryant sums to 224. On my channel, there's a recent video about the death of Robert Archibald. He spent the 2004 season with the Toronto Raptors. He died on January 23rd, just 3 days before Kobe Bryant. The Toronto Raptors won the NBA title 224 days earlier. So, this game, Kobe Bryant scoring 81 points, was of course all related to his death and Super Bowl 54, as I've been saying. This was a blood sacrifice ritual, summing to 257. This is the gematria of total solar eclipse. In Greek, you also get a value of 257. Super Bowl 54 sums to 257 in the alphabetic order. Kobe Bryant scoring 81 points on January 22nd, which equals 257. He plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, 257. And they were playing against the Toronto Raptors, which sums to 257. This game was exactly 113 weeks after the most recent total solar eclipse. Kobe Bryant equals 113, just like the National Basketball Association. So the 113 is very interesting, connecting to the eclipses, but what about the 329 in the alphabetic order? Kobe Bryant was born on August 23rd of 1978, meaning that on the date he scored 81 points, he was a span of exactly 329 months old. 329, not only found in the gematria of January 22nd in English, but the phrase ritual human sacrifice summing to 329 as well. And, you know, it's hard to think that's not relevant here. So by now, I think I've established to a pretty good extent that Kobe Bryant's career was scripted alongside by the numbers with Joe Montana's, and it sounds absurd on the surface, but here you have the winningest quarterback in the 80s winning 4 championships. And then you have the winningest basketball player of the 2000s. I forget if he won 6 or 7 titles with the Lakers, but more than enough. And this riddle is so deep. Again, this video is going to go on for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in the chat here and see if there's anything I have to attend to. I see we got Zach in the chat, so he's always a welcome presence when we're talking about sports. And as we go along in this video, I'm going to be talking more about my prediction on the game. Now, again, I'm not a sports bettor. If you're taking advice from me as a sports bettor, I consider you foolish because I don't make money on sports betting. However, the more I look at this, and especially since the death of Kobe Bryant, the more I think that the Chiefs might end up winning instead. There's just too many things that line up. The numerology of Patrick Mahomes, not just syncing up with Joe Montana, but also Kobe Bryant. And we'll look at that more towards the end of the video, because I want to show how the riddle can go both ways. However, I do feel like the riddle for the Chiefs, especially with the death of Kobe Bryant, is definitely a little stronger. So as I'm going down the chat, the first thing I want to address is the idea that he might not really be dead. And, you know, I did a video on this, and I left some comments in my own section saying, you know, it seems most likely that this is fake, that this is a hoax. I mean, Kobe Bryant 113, that number that's associated with lying. But I tell you what, if it is a hoax, I don't think very many people know about it. You know, this whole thing, watching the news coverage about the death, has been very surreal. Seeing all these players clearly affected by this tragedy, some of his best friends. If you want a great example, look at the Tracy McGrady interview. I mean, the man is bawling. And if he's that great of an actor, then what was he ever doing playing basketball? He should have been an actor. So definitely a lot of his close friends think he's dead. And Kobe Bryant, of all the athletes, I mean, he was one of the guys who seemed least likely to me to be part of this sinister cabal doing things, you know. My interpretation of it, again, it could be wrong, but I just don't see him as being the kind to fake his death. My guess at this stage is that he's probably dead, and more likely than not, his helicopter was brought down intentionally somehow. That seems to be like the most likely thing. I mean, you can certainly make a case that this is organic, and I think looking at the layers of coding underneath this, you know, perhaps some people might think that's more of an argument for an organic event, but, you know, it's not my job to change your mind on that, I suppose. I just want to show you how deep this coding is and the root of the riddle, so to speak. Okay, Amy, you're deleting messages that I am not approving that you should be deleting. You know, this guy disagrees with you, and I think he's right. I don't think Kobe's death is a hoax, and like I said, I thought maybe it was at first, the day it happened, but ultimately, it you know, it doesn't matter. We have the ritual in place. We're yeah. So I apologize to Decoded Reality for that during the chat there. And, you know, as I always say with numerology, you know, I can show people all of this numerology, and most people, their conclusion will be based on their predisposition to the information. So if they're already a conspiracy theorist, like I guess I am to some extent, they're going to see a conspiracy in this like I do. If they think it's all natural, then they're going to look at this and just say it's all God, you know. So it's tough using numerology to convince people, but you can definitely show them something is going on and how they And, you know, another thing that stands out about the Kobe Bryant crash that's bizarre, and of course there's always a lot of bizarre things about it, but they said it crashed into a hillside on a foggy day, and the crash site was very inaccessible. Now, that would be convenient if you were trying to cover something up, right? You know, fly a fake helicopter out there or whatever. The other element of it that's strange, too, is that even though they said it was really foggy and that he shouldn't have been flying, it didn't seem like the crash occurred because they just blindingly ran into a hill. Witnesses said they saw the helicopter plummeting first. They said they heard weird noises. It was flying too low to begin with. So it's certainly possible they were a lot lower than they thought, but again, it doesn't add up. None of these stories do. Someone's pointing out that the Chiefs are the favorite in the media, and I do see they're a 1.5 point favorite. The one thing I do feel comfortable saying about this game is that it's going to be really, really good. I think this game is going to be a phenomenal Super Bowl. It might go to overtime, probably not, but I think you're going to see Patrick Mahomes in a comeback situation at the end of the game, because Joe Montana was known as the comeback kid, Captain Clutch, the most clutch quarterback of all time. And Patrick Mahomes has matching gematria with Joe Montana, but he's also coded with a lot of sacrifice numbers. So this is something we'll continue to explore as this video goes on. All right, so back to the 41 riddle. Actually, before I get there, I want to point out the age of Kobe Bryant on the date of this eclipse. So Kobe Bryant was born less than a year before this eclipse over Montana, which is part of the reason this is all connected. From his birthday to the date of the Montana eclipse, check out how he was 187 days old. Total eclipse with the gematria of 187. 187 popularized as the homicide code. Now, on the date of this same eclipse, Joe Montana was a span of 261 days after his birthday. And, this is similar to the date 26/1, like the date Kobe Bryant died, the 26th of January. When you write out the number 54 as it's spelled, not only does it sum to 54 in reduction, but you get an ordinal value of 126, just like the date Kobe Bryant died. The state of Montana admitted to the Union on a date with 126 numerology, 11 plus 8 plus 18 plus 89, 126. The Montana eclipse also occurred on a date with 126 numerology, 2 plus 26 plus 19 plus 79. Just like the gematria of 54, the Super Bowl number that this state is coded to. Also notice this eclipse even had numerology of 54 right there. And in regards to the 108 and 126 in Montana, once again, this is the gematria of Joe Montana's full name, 108, 126. Patrick Mahomes, his full name, summing to 126, and 108 with the S exception. Check out how Joe Montana sums to 917. Well, Patrick Mahomes was born on 9/17. So he's got a birthday with matching gematria with Joe Montana. Their names match. A lot of connections here. But I want you to think about Patrick Mahomes' birthday, September 17th. Well, this can also be written 17/9. Now, 179 is a prime number. The 41st prime number, bringing us right back to the 41 riddle. Furthermore, his birthday had numerology of 41. Again, Montana, the 41st state. Super Bowl, Kobe Bryant, dead at 41. The number 41 in the alphabetic order equals 118. If you measure from Joe Montana's birthday to the birthday of Steve Bullock, well, who's Steve Bullock? Well, he's the governor of Montana. And notice how he was also born on the 11th, just like Joe. Notice how they were born exactly 118 months apart. The state of Montana was admitted to the Union on the date 11/8. So how interesting is that, right? Montana, the 41st state, 41, summing to 118, just like the date they were admitted to the Union. Oh, yeah, that's right. And check out the date, November 8th. As it's written, see how it sums to 889? Montana becoming a state in the year 1889. In Jewish Gematria, the phrase Joe Montana Bowl equals 1889. And indeed, the admission of Montana to the Union, a riddle for the Joe Montana Bowl. This number 1889 is a pretty interesting number on its own. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but 1889 is the 290th prime number. And this is the number of Christ, 290. And we see eclipse sacrifice riddles play out by this code, 290. If you check my blog, I got a post on the 290th anniversary of modern Freemasonry. We had the death of Chris Benoit and his family. And there's so many connections there by the numbers that's definitely worth a read. So then, to top this 889 riddle off, well, if you go from the Great American Total Solar Eclipse, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the one that went from coast to coast, measuring from that date to the date that Kobe Bryant died was actually a span of 889 days. I also talked about the 888, right? It was the same day as the 33rd Royal Rumble. Royal Rumble equals 888. Kobe equals 33. Remember, 3.14 equals 888. 3.14 is pi, which is 69, just like how Kobe Bryant is 690. So again, it's just all so well done. So as I mentioned, Kobe dying a week or 7 days before Super Bowl 54, which is on the 33rd day of the year. The word eclipse equals 33 and 222. This year's Super Bowl being played on the 33rd day, which is 2/2/20, right? A little playing with numbers there. I like doing that. But what's really interesting about the Super Bowl is that it's exactly 895 days after the Great American Eclipse. The number 33 equals 895, just like ritual human sacrifice, 895. And we knew there was going to be some sacrifices for the Super Bowl, but if you had told me one of them would be Kobe Bryant, I probably would not have believed you. And this number is also coded into Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, born on 9/17 of 1995, meaning that on the date of the game, he'll be a span of 8,905 days old. So we talked about the 122 riddle. Montana Bowl has an ordinal value of 130. The state of Montana will be 130 years old on the date of the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl occurs 130 days before Joe Montana's birthday. Kobe Bryant was born on August 23rd, which is the date that leaves 130 days in the year. 130, another number of human sacrifice. Both of the teams in the Super Bowl have connections to the number 13. Notice how KC equals 13 in two ciphers. You have the 49ers. 4 plus 9 equals 13. And San Francisco 49ers equals 1313. And just to show you guys that this Montana Bowl thing is no joke. No matter how you write this out, it's almost ridiculous. I feel silly doing this, but when you write out the Montana Bowl, you get more numbers that line up. See the 163 in ordinal? Kobe Bryant would be 163 days after his birthday on the date of this game. Joe Montana was born on the 163rd day of a leap year. Notice how that date is 6/11, June 11th, Joe Montana's birthday. Well, the number 611 has a prime factorization of 13 times 47, right? 611, not a prime number, but these are the prime numbers you multiply to get it. 13 times 47. The Montana Bowl equals 1347. And June 11th is the 163rd day of the year. You can take it a step further. The Joe Montana Bowl gives us 2002. The game is on 2/2/2020. And then we get 193 in ordinal, which is the 44th prime number. The date numerology of the Super Bowl, 44. So I feel like it's silly, because there's so many ways you can write it out. The Joe Montana Bowl, Joe Montana Bowl, Montana Bowl. But no matter what, you get very clear alignments with the calendar. It's fascinating stuff. All right, what else do I have to cover here? I'm going to jump back in on the chat. Thanks to everybody who jumped in live, man. It's nice to see this many people on a live stream. Just browsing over some of the recent comments. Zach pointing out, okay, the Chiefs are the Vegas favorite. The 49ers are the media favorite. And, yeah, that's a good point. I think the media will always try to push you to bet on the team that will lose in many, many advanced ways. Somebody mentioned the number 666 with Kobe. What I did not mention during my decode of Kobe Bryant's 81-point game is that was his 666th career game. Someone pointed that out to me today, and I verified it. That's definitely true. Oh, sorry I misunderstood from earlier. You guys, I'm really bad at reading comments and doing videos. So that guy was saying numerology is bogus, which obviously that's not true. What's behind numerology, I guess you could debate about that all day, but to say that numerology is bogus is an absolute joke. This code is clear as day. So Bobby made a mention about Andy Reid in his records. So I guess let's get into this, right? Yeah, what the hell? Let's start looking at the numbers of the games here because I want to look at the records of the teams and the quarterbacks, the coaches, just to see what pops out, where there could be a major riddle. Now, the Chiefs have a career playoff record of 12-19. And again, I preface this by saying I don't bet on sports. I don't have the experience of seeing which riddles work out more often than others. So, but I'm just going to go along with what I see in relation to this. So, the Chiefs, if they win, they would go 13-19. And you know what? I just realized this. I'm not even kidding. Look how old Jimmy Garoppolo is on the date of the Super Bowl, guys. 10,319 days old. Could the Chiefs push their playoff record to 13-19 when their opposing quarterback is 10,319 days old? That's pretty interesting. Remember, Andy Reid, the coach of the Chiefs, is born on 3/19. So to me, that's a feather in the hat for the Chiefs. But here's the other thing. If they lose, they drop to 12-20, which points us back at the 122 number that we've been talking about. Kansas City equals 122. San Francisco equals 122. So either way, there's probably arguments you can make. Meanwhile, the 49ers looking for their 34th playoff win. Now, right off the bat, I noticed that if they lose their next game, it would be their 22nd. And think about this in relation to the date of the Super Bowl, right? The date February 2nd, the 33rd day of the year, 2233. They could go 33-22 with a loss. If they went 34-21, other than those both being Fibonacci numbers, right? Like the 8th and 9th, I think. I don't really see much there. So to me, the loss makes more sense. Here's a look at Andy Reid's coaching record. Like we said, his birthday was 3/19. Andy Reid's won a career 221 games, adding the regular season with the playoffs. So the riddle there is pretty clear, right? February 2nd equals 222. Andy Reid looking for his 222nd career win on 2/2/2020. So that's pretty good. This would be his 82nd win with the Chiefs. Bryant is 82. I'm not too sure if that would be used, but a number that does pop out. As far as his playoff record with the Chiefs, I don't think you can make anything of this. I mean, he's either going to win or lose his 15th. So whether he's 15-14 or 14-15, I don't see a difference. The same thing applies for Kyle Shanahan. His career record is 25-25, including playoffs. So he's either going to win or lose his 26th game. And Bryant is 26. But again, he's 500 right now, so I don't see how it makes a difference. It'll be his 51st game coaching. Yeah, what's the total of games here that they're coaching? We know Andy Reid, 336 regular season. You add 28 postseason games, this will be his 365th. Full circle. Oh, it's 366. My bad. So, I mean, the coach riddles, I think the biggest riddle here is that Andy Reid's going for his 222nd win on 2/2/2020. Total solar eclipse 202. That's a pretty good one. Next, a glance at Patrick Mahomes. Huh, 287. Anyway, okay, so he's got a career record of 27-8. 24-7 during the regular season. And now he's 2-1 in the postseason. I'm sorry, 3-1. So yeah, he's 27-8 career. He's trying to push his record to 28-8. And let me tell you, there's a 28-8 riddle here. Now, at first I just found this to be a really strange number. I don't know if there's any significance to it, but you be the judge. So we're talking about how, Kobe Bryant coded with the state of Montana and its eclipse. Well, on the date Kobe Bryant was born, Montana had been a state for 88 years and 288 days. So it's hard for me to make a whole lot out of this right off the bat, but I guess helicopter crash equals 88 in reduction. But there's 288, in both directions. You get a 288, right? I looked at the mayor of Montana earlier and his numerology. Notice how on the date of the game, he'll be a span of exactly 2,808 weeks old. And again, with a Patrick Mahomes victory, they go 28-8. Measuring from the Montana eclipse, to the date Patrick Mahomes was born, you get this number 6,047. In English Gematria, Patrick Mahomes equals 647. This is the same as Los Angeles, California. That's where Kobe Bryant played his entire career. And now Kobe, dying just before the game. Patrick Mahomes summing to 477 in Jewish Gematria as well. Joe Montana equals 477. And remember, Mahomes' full name having the same 126 value as Joe Montana's. So numerically, Patrick Mahomes is far more linked to Joe Montana than what I found with Jimmy Garoppolo. What I actually found is that Jimmy Garoppolo is actually coded with Kobe Bryant, and I think that's a bad sign because Kobe Bryant just died in a helicopter crash. And let me explain this. Back in early November, I made a video about the Venus riddle. Decoder Bobby Simpson, who's a moderator in the chat, he pointed out that we would see a Venus riddle with Jimmy Garoppolo on Halloween during their Thursday night football game. And sure enough, after the game, Garoppolo was interviewed by Aaron Andrews, and all the media was talking about the next day is that Garoppolo was flirting with Aaron Andrews. Of course, Venus, the planet that represents love and beauty. Aaron Andrews, born on May 4th, just like how Venus equals 54. And this turned out, indeed, to be a riddle for Super Bowl 54. Venus also equals 81, and it would be the next week that the Niners fell to a record of 8-1, their first loss of the season against the Seahawks. So that Venus riddle was really, really interesting. A lot of things manifesting by that code. Well, check out how close the gematria of Venus is to Kobe Bryant. So with Venus, we get an 81, a 54, and a 1035. Familiar numbers, if you've been following the work, Kobe Bean Bryant, 54, 81, and 135. Also notice the 243 in the reverse alphabetic order. Venus has a rotational period of 243 days. Furthermore, Venus takes 224 days to orbit the sun. And as I pointed out earlier, Kobe Bryant equals 224. This was the gematria of Joseph Clifford Montana also from New Eagle, Pennsylvania. And if you think about it, there's another interesting thing here too. Venus would have been 67 Venus years from the birth to the death of Kobe Bryant. Kobe equals 67, and he died on a date with 67 numerology. 67, the number of blood sacrifice, human sacrifice. And as I pointed out, Kobe, right, equaling 33, dying exactly 888 days after the eclipse on the same date as the Royal Rumble. And it was the 33rd Royal Rumble. Drew McIntyre won the Men's Royal Rumble. His name equals 67. Charlotte Flair won the Women's Rumble. Her name equals 67. The name Kobe Bryant also has the same gematria in reduction as planet Venus. When he died, he was 15,131 days old. 131, the number of the Super Bowl. 131 ordinal, just like championship, 131. The Super Bowl this year falling a span of 131 days before Joe Montana's birthday. So I'm just trying to look at this from a symbolic perspective. Because here's what bothers me about Patrick Mahomes, right? Kobe equals 33, as we've been talking about this whole time. Well, the number 33 is connected to the number 226. I got to figure out which post this is in. Could have sworn it was this one. I did so many posts on this. It's difficult to keep it all together. I wanted to talk about the eclipse riddle. I guess while I'm looking for this, I want to point out that, Kobe equaling 33. 33 is 11 times 3. Kobe Bryant equaling 113. And if you measure from Kobe Bryant's 33rd birthday to the date he died, you get 101 months in 3 days. So that doesn't seem coincidental to me. That seems part of this coding. Remember, he had the Oscar-winning short film Dear Basketball, which equals 113. That film was released on the 113th day of the year. Kobe died 33 months and 3 days after the release of Dear Basketball. And that film was based on a letter that he wrote, published on the 333rd day of the year. Patrick LeVon Mahomes II equaling 333. The Super Bowl this year, on the date that leaves 333 days on the calendar. Something else that I should have mentioned earlier about the numerology of this year's Super Bowl. Notice how it has numerology of 8 and 24. Those are the two numbers that Kobe Bryant wore throughout his career. This Montana eclipse that we've been talking about was on the date 2/26. Now, 226 is also a number I tend to associate with sacrifice. This word has Gematria of 226. And these eclipse riddles coming from the story of the crucifixion of Jesus, which equals 226. Now, Patrick Mahomes equals 226 in reverse. Also, square numbers, you get another 226. His coach, Andy Reid, will be 22,600 days old on the date of the game. And just think about the name Patrick, summing to 33 on the 33rd day of the year. Mahomes equals 74. This is the 74th season of the NBA. So, while the numbers line up for Patrick Mahomes, he's also got all these sacrifice Jesus numbers. Or maybe he's the savior, and he's coming here to save the Chiefs franchise. I've really been racking my brain about how to interpret this. And this is why I don't like to do sports, because you end up in this whirlpool of numbers. And you're seeing patterns, but you're not really sure what it means. Sometimes they can go either way. Yeah. Just going to pop in the chat again real quick. Thanks again to everybody jumping in live. It's pretty awesome. Someone mentioned the Grammys in the chat too. The Grammys were definitely a part of this riddle as well. I would just direct people to Zach's blog to see the number of riddles that are at play here. He's written a short novel on this Kobe death by now, it looks like. And he's picking a lot of the really important things apart. Like I said, the reason I wanted to do this video is because I wanted to get to the root of the riddle, I feel. You know what I just thought of too? Someone put the word Steve in the chat, and I'm not sure what they were talking about, but didn't Stevie Ray Vaughan die in a helicopter crash that hit a mountain as well? I wonder if there's a connection between that death with Kobe's, because My first video on the death of Kobe Bryant the other night was sorry, I lost my train of thought. Thinking of too many things here. Oh, the death of Kobe Bryant was related to all sorts of helicopter crashes that happened within the last year or two. Just the numbers lined up perfectly. All right, so let's look up Stevie Ray Vaughan. I knew I had his name wrong. I don't remember him dying. I mean, I was pretty young, but this did happen in Wisconsin because he had just played a concert at Alpine Valley. He died August 27th of 1990. Yeah, I remember this was connected to the Texas flood. It was exactly 27 years before Houston got flooded. So does anything pop out about the numerology measuring between these two helicopter crashes of Kobe and Stevie Ray? It is interesting that we get exactly 353 months. Now, this is the 76th prime number. However, I'm not too keen on what that connection is. If there's any connection here, it's that August 27th is the 126th day of the year. Kobe dead on 126. This date also had 54 numerology. Look at this. Stevie Ray Vaughan sums to 79 in reduction, dead in a helicopter crash. Also 83 in reverse reduction. See that? He died. He was born on October 3rd of 54. So he was, oh, look at this. 33 years. 329 days. Remember ritual human sacrifice equaling 329 and 895, just like 33. Holy smokes. So was this guy ritually sacrificed? I mean, that's what the numbers would kind of suggest, right? This was also 38 days before his birthday. So a little live decoding there for you on the death of Stevie Ray Vaughan, the victim of another helicopter crash. I feel like there's still some important things that I left out of this video. Again, I made a lot of posts. This one, for instance, called the eclipse riddle. A lot of this is just pointing out interesting numbers. For instance, on the date of the 2024 eclipse, if I can find it. Yeah, this one here. Look how old Kobe Bryant would have been. 16,666 days old. Like, I don't know what that means exactly, but it's really interesting, especially now in light of the fact that the best game he ever had was on his 666th career game, right? This is also 2,380 weeks. And he was born on the date 23/8. He died 238 weeks before his birthday in that year, 2024. Remember Kobe Bryant, 224. The moon, of course, an average of 238,000 miles from the Earth. So I thought that was a really interesting alignment there. This post also talks about all the sacrifice numbers with Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's really wild, man. When you look at the date of the Dear Basketball letter. So let's look at this. Kobe Bryant announced his retirement by writing a letter to the Players Tribune. It was published on November 29th of 2015. That was the 333rd day of the year, right? And now the Super Bowl is being played on the date that leaves 333 days in the year. And we looked at how this number connects us to Patrick Mahomes, whose name sums to 333. So I thought, how old was Patrick Mahomes on the date of this letter? Because of all these 333 connections, it seems to be significant. Well, not only was it 73 days after his birthday, which is yet another sacrifice number. Ritual sacrifice, 73. But he was exactly 1,054 weeks old. Ritual sacrifice equals 154. And then in prime numbers, ritual sacrifice equals 477, which is the number that Patrick Mahomes shares with Joe Montana. When the film was released, that happened on April 23rd in 2017. Mahomes was 1,127 weeks old exactly. Notice how the word retirement equals 127. And this happened in the year 2017. Measuring from the Great American Eclipse that same year, 2017, to the death of Kobe Bryant was a span of exactly 127 weeks. And notice how if you don't include the end date, 127 weeks after the eclipse was the date 127. Remember, metonic cycle 127. And I actually have an entirely separate post on how the death of Kobe Bryant was a metonic cycle riddle. Now, if you are familiar with my work and have been for a while, you might have caught on to the fact that the city of Los Angeles, California, is closely related to the numerology of the metonic cycle. Perhaps no post sums this up better than my post on the Griffith Observatory, in which people can look at the stars from Los Angeles. This man, his birthday, his death, his name, completely coded with the metonic cycle. The car accident of Kevin Hart, which was in Los Angeles, completely coded by the metonic cycle numbers. So, the metonic cycle, summing to 160 and 245, just like helicopter crash, 160, 245. And we pointed out how metonic cycle sums to 127. Kobe Bryant dead exactly 127 weeks after the eclipse. The next day was 127. The word metonic on its own equals 79. Remember that Montana eclipse was in the year 79. Kobe played for the LA Lakers, 79. He had birth numerology of 109. Los Angeles, 109. There's 19 years in the metonic cycle. 7 of them have a 13th month. Metonic cycle, 197. 19 years, 197. 13th month, 197. Moon, 197 in Gematria. Kobe died 197 weeks after his last NBA game.
A helicopter.
A couple years ago, pro wrestling superstar Shane McMahon, the son of the owner Vince, was in a helicopter crash, or allegedly was in a helicopter crash. I think they're trying to tell us that this guy in the video is Shane McMahon, but if you watch this video, that's definitely not Shane McMahon. Anyway, Shane McMahon, who was in this seemingly fake helicopter crash, and remember, I did an entire video linking the death of Kobe Bryant to the winner of the Royal Rumble. So it makes sense that, this is a WWE story. Look at when Shane McMahon was born, the year 1970, right? Lining up with this metonic cycle code. Look at the date of the helicopter crash. It was July 19th, the date written 19/7. Perhaps most significant of all, though, is the base of this riddle. Back in 1923, we began counting lunations. And just 2 days before Kobe Bryant died, we began Brown lunation number 1201. 1201 is the 197th prime number. So a massive metonic cycle riddle to celebrate the 1201st lunation. Now, the metonic cycle, we mentioned it's 19 years. It's also 235 lunar phases. Well, Kobe Bryant was born on the 235th day of the year. The winner of the Royal Rumble was a span of 235 days after his birthday. His name equals 235. Kobe's final NBA game, 235 days after his birthday. The Great American Eclipse occurred 1 day before Kobe turned 2,035 weeks old. We talked about the 127, the 217. His retirement letter was exactly 217 weeks before he died. There's also a really deep Philadelphia connection, too. Okay, yeah. So metonic cycle sums to 547 in satanic gematria. And this is the same as Los Angeles, California, in Jewish gematria, right? 547. So 547 is the 101st prime number. Kobe was from Philadelphia, 101, and then played his career in Los Angeles, which is 109. Well, isn't it interesting that Kobe was born in Philadelphia 101,109 days after it was incorporated? And then he was born in Philadelphia, moved to Los Angeles. I don't know. Just one of those things I couldn't ignore when I saw it. So I feel like I'm kind of running out of things to look at. I mean, we looked at the connection with the 79 eclipse. We looked at the 81-point game from Kobe Bryant, which was coded to the teeth in relation to his death. And then we talked about potential predictions. I think, again, there's a riddle for both teams. I still think the riddle for the Chiefs is stronger. The numbers as far as the records seem to line up better with the Chiefs. It's just that the whole sacrifice coding with Patrick Mahomes, I'm not sure if he's the sacrifice or if Kobe was the sacrifice for him. You know what I mean? I think symbolically, thinking about it logically, it makes a little more sense that the sacrifice was for Patrick Mahomes. So I'm just looking at the chat again, trying to keep up. Whenever we get this many people in the chat, sometimes it gets out of hand. You guys all like to argue with each other and stuff. Oh, another reason I think there's a couple other records I didn't look at when looking at the numbers. One thing that's important is that the 49ers lead the all-time matchup with the Chiefs by a score of 7-6. And this is what I've heard. I haven't actually looked at it myself, but I assume it's correct. Yeah, San Francisco leads 7-6. So this means that if the Chiefs win, San Francisco would be 7-7, and the series would be tied. And 77 is a number we've talked a lot about. Jimmy G 77, Jimmy Garoppolo 77. The magic square of Venus is 7x7. And we had that big Venus riddle with Jimmy G. Garoppolo threw for 77 yards in his conference championship win. So there's another feather in the Chiefs' cap. San Francisco losing would make the series tied at that number, 7-7. So that's definitely part of it. There was one other record I forgot to look at that had some significance in it. It's slipping my mind again. This is what happens when you stream for over 70 minutes. Start to get confused. I'm going to look back at the chat, though, because that's how I got reminded to look at this in the first place. Can you guys stop arguing about Zach in my chat? I mean, everybody who's doing this work has a different perspective on it. You can get entirely different perspectives from me, from Zach, from Dan Barrett. We're always looking at these from different sides. So what stands out as important to one might not be that important to others. You know, a lot of people like to observe these other ciphers and, you know, make long-winded videos on them and talk about this. I don't do that. You know, that's not my style. So you're going to learn something different and new from all of us, you know, and just no use pitting everyone against each other. Oh, that was what I wanted to look at. Someone mentioned that Joe Montana was 4-0 in Super Bowls with the 49ers. And that's true, he was. All four of his championships were won with San Francisco. Now, we've been looking at the phrase Joe Montana Bowl to discuss this game. The 160, like helicopter crash, Joe Montana wearing number 16, winning Super Bowl 16. The state of Montana admitted to the Union in 1889. If you measure to the next Great American total solar eclipse from the date of the Super Bowl, you get almost exactly 218 weeks. Joe Montana Bowl, 218. This is the Hebrew Gematria of moon. 74, that's a great number too, but this 52 really stands out because right now, the 49ers are 5-1 in Super Bowls. If they lose, they will become 5-2 in the Joe Montana Bowl. So that's another one. I mean, I'm not seeing many 61s or 6-1s. Perhaps there is an exception, the moon. Ooh, this is an interesting one, guys. The moon equals 283, which is the 61st prime number. The moon, the keeper of time in the sky, time 61. Jimmy Garoppolo, on the date of the Super Bowl, will be 28 years and 3 months old, exactly, right? So, could he push his team to 6-1? Or will a loss give the Chiefs a playoff record of 13-19, you know? To me, the 13-19 riddle there is stronger than the prime number relationship. And if you're thinking it would be too obvious for Andy Reid to win his 222nd game on February 2nd, the date 2/2/2020, remember, this is exactly what they did in Super Bowl 51. The New England Patriots sums to 250. And in the season that they moved the touchback to the 25-yard line, the New England Patriots, who are coached by Bill Belichick, which equals 97, the 25th prime number, The Patriots completed a 25-point comeback. It was the AFC's 25th Super Bowl, Tom Brady's 25th playoff game. The winning touchdown was scored by a guy who turned 25 years old just a couple days before the game. Trying to think if there's anything else that I missed. Again, like, I'm not telling you guys to bet on Kansas City. I'm just saying, if I had to bet, I would probably bet on Kansas City. Now, I did end my last video saying I would bet on San Francisco, but then Kobe Bryant died. The alignments to Patrick Mahomes seemed a little more clear, and yeah, it's really this 1979 eclipse over Montana. You know, we were all asking, why did they go with this riddle? I mean, they could have gone with the Super Bowl I rematch. A lot of people had the Packers going in against the Titans. We had a lot of Titans propaganda up to the Super Bowl, but they didn't do that. We instead got this Montana Bowl, and hopefully now we totally get it, why they chose this riddle. Because, again, it all comes down to solar eclipses, and if you're still doubting that this code is significant for eclipses, then oof. Feel sorry for you. So it'll be interesting. I mean, either way, I'm going to be watching the game. You know, I don't watch shit for sports these days, but I'm definitely going to be checking out the Super Bowl because I'm telling you guys, it's going to be a really, really good game. You're going to see throwbacks to Joe Montana's career, I think, as Patrick Mahomes marches down the field. Might be worth looking at some like defensive players, some receivers to see if any numbers pop up. We can catch any stars of the game ahead of time. That'd be interesting too. I might try to look at that. But I think I'm going to wrap this video up. This was definitely a super stream. We're about an hour and 18 minutes into that, so it's a little longer than I wanted to go, but hopefully everybody kind of understands the riddle now and has a better idea of how to decode future Super Bowls, as that's really the goal, right? We're just trying to raise the general knowledge base of the communities, and it's not necessarily all about picking the games, but I think a lot of money could have been made if you knew, like if you were able to look ahead and see this riddle. We're a long ways away from that, but you never know. We could get there. It could happen. All right, guys. Thanks to everybody who jumped in and made this live stream a lot of fun. Everybody stay kind to each other out there. If you're watching the game, stay safe. Don't do anything stupid. Don't drink too many of those spirits and lose your way on the way home. All right, guys. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you next time.